A professional army really started to arise in the New Kingdom after the Egyptians experienced the Hyksos, people, invaders from the northeast who took over the northeast delta and then basically dominated much of northern Egypt. Hyksos, called the rulers of foreign countries, they had chariotry, they had special weaponry, and so in the New Kingdom, a class of specialist warriors grew up, and then you had more of a professional standing army.
The professionalization of the army is backed up by a massive build-up in weaponry. The era of the legendary warrior pharaohs begins. Enter Thutmose III of the 18th dynasty.
You had pharaohs like Thutmose III, the Napoleon of ancient Egypt, creating the empire to its greatest extent. They did so because they were able to learn that military technology.
Thutmose relies heavily on the wonder weapon of his time, the chariot. The Egyptians adapted it from the Hyksos. Yet, even if they didn't invent it, they excel at continuously improving its characteristics.
The Egyptians were never particularly innovative in terms of technology, but they were quick to react. The moment they met an enemy with a new weapon, such as the Near Eastern composite bow, the Egyptians would immediately copy it. The same goes for chariots. Then it was the pharaoh's job to create the appropriate logistics, expertise, and infrastructure to implement these new weapons and combat techniques.
How the Egyptians optimized the construction of chariots is known thanks to Tutankhamun's treasure. A total of 6 chariots were found in the king's tomb. Among them, the pharaoh's ceremonial chariot. Although the gilded and richly decorated vehicle is unfit for battle, it shows the construction of an Egyptian chariot down to the smallest detail. The frame is made of curved timbers. Its large track width carries the chariot safely through turns. 6 spokes provide stability for the wheels, which are covered with cattle intestines as a kind of ancient tire. The contraption is held together by wooden connectors and leather cords. Thus, it can be easily disassembled and transported.
The Egyptian chariot was an absolute high-tech product for its time. Chariots were of great importance throughout the New Kingdom and revolutionized warfare. Egyptian troops were known to emerge at high speed, shoot their arrows, and then retreat to the side or the rear on their chariots.
Thutmose has his troops train hard with a new war machine. The Egyptian chariot combines high mobility with the range of bow and arrow, making it the most feared weapon on the battlefield for a long time. For the pharaoh, his newly established chariot corps becomes an instrument of imperial power politics. In 1457 BC, he's determined to make the most of his new weapon. The Egyptian Empire has extended its borders far to the east, but the princes of the Levant want to shake off foreign rule and rally against Egypt. Thutmose moves against the center of the revolt, the mountain fortress of Megiddo.
The 22nd dynasty, which governed publicly under Libyan titles, was also Libyan. Shoshenq I, 943 to 922 BCE, established it after unifying Egypt and embarking on war operations reminiscent of Egypt's empire days. Shoshenq I reformed Tanis's administration and Thebes' clergy. The clergy would no longer be a hereditary post, but rather one of nomination by the monarch, as would be the choice of God's wife of Amun. His military operations revitalized Egypt's economy, and the nation started to approach the Egypt of the New Kingdom during his reign. Osirkin II ascended to the throne in 872 BCE and kept the nation together, but after his rule, Egypt split into distinct kingdoms governing from Heracleopolis, Tanis, Sais, Memphis, and Hermopolis in Lower Egypt, and Thebes in Upper Egypt. To the south, the Kushite ruler Kashta, 750 BCE, saw Egypt's vulnerability and moved to exploit it. Kashta adored Egyptian culture and had Egyptianized his capital city of Napata, and thus his entire territory. He had strong trade connections with Thebes and was well versed in the procedure of appointing priests and other high officials. By 747 to 721 BCE, his son strengthened Nubian dominance of Upper Egypt, and when the kings of Lower Egypt protested, he commanded a large army against them. Pi conquered Lower Egypt, capturing and subjugating all of the main towns before marching back to Napata. Egypt was now legally under his rule, but he allowed the Lower Egyptian kings to regroup and re-establish their power. These buffer zones diminished during the Third Intermediate Period, and Egypt lost its prior strength. But there were still countries on its boundary, such as Judah and Israel, that served the same purpose. The subjugation of those areas by Shoshenq I pushed Egypt's boundary up against the Assyrians, with no buffer in between. Moving forth to the 26th dynasty, Psammetichus I was a powerful ruler who instilled in his people the grandeur of Egypt's past by restoring it through massive projects, renovations, restorations, and military feats. His son, Necho II, 610 to 595 BCE, continued his father's legacy by conducting military battles, ordering construction projects, and expanding the military. The Egyptians were never great seafarers, and Necho II recognized this by establishing a fleet of Greek mercenaries, which proved quite successful. Necho II is regularly portrayed as a great warrior and military commander who strengthened the nation he had inherited. During the reign of Amasis II, he was successful in reforming government spending while also stimulating the economy and directing war operations. Egypt came together behind his leadership and thrived once more, with a thriving economy, secure boundaries, and prosperous commerce. Building projects, temples, and other works of art were finished, and Egypt's reputation regained some of its lost lusters. He was replaced by his son Psammetichus III, 526 BCE, who was a young and inexperienced king who was ill-prepared for the difficulties he faced. Cambyses II, the Persian monarch, had sent to Amasis asking for one of his daughters as a bride. But Amasis, not wanting to obey but also trying to prevent confrontation, sent Apries' daughter instead, who was his predecessor. This former Egyptian princess was profoundly offended by Amasis' choice, particularly since it had long been Egyptian policy not to transfer noble women to foreign monarchs as wives. When she arrived at Cambyses II's palace, she disclosed her true identity, and Cambyses II vowed to revenge Amasis' slander by sending him a fake bride.
A huge army rolls 250 kilometers to the east, 12,000 warriors and their retinues. It takes them a good 2 weeks to march through scorching deserts and rugged valleys. Then they reach their destination. Megiddo, a fortified city on a hill, and a place of utmost importance.
Who controls Megiddo controls the Jezreel Valley, and who controls the Jezreel Valley controls the whole region. That's why this was crucially important for the Egyptian army at the time of Thutmose III to get control of the city of Megiddo.
Just one obstacle lies between the city and the Egyptian army: the Carmel Mountains. Pharaoh Thutmose wants to lead his army through a narrow pass. His officers advise against it. They think it's too risky and would rather bypass the mountain. But Thutmose sticks to his plan. Why does he take this risk? The answer is found here, in the sacred precinct of Thebes. In the temple of Karnak, Thutmose III has immortalized his war diary in stone, propagating his view of events and even explaining why he dismissed the advice of his officers the day before the battle.
There he states, "No, I will go through the narrow pathway. I will not appear weak or cowardly in front of the enemy." Moses III is giving a clear signal to his enemies of strength and boldness. At the same time, he is encouraging his own troops.
As the army sets out, everyone knows that if they are attacked in the narrow pass, they will be lost. Yet, Thutmose's move pays off. No attack develops. There's nothing left to protect the rebels from the wrath of the Pharaoh. The next day, the attack on the camp of the unsuspecting enemy begins. At the head of his chariots, Thutmose charges against them. He strikes quickly and hard. 1,000 chariots are said to have been in the inventory of the Egyptian army. The rebels are put to flight, but they're not yet defeated. Since, during the first attack, only 83 enemies are killed. So the war diary records. The rebels entrench themselves in Megiddo. A month-long siege begins. A team of archaeologists tries to find out why the defenders are able to hold on for so long. They dig their way back in time, layer by layer, to the era of the warrior pharaoh Thutmose III. With each new discovery, excavator Israel Finkelstein can reconstruct the appearance of the former city ever more precisely. Even the smallest shards of clay help to solve the riddle of Megiddo.
Well, so here we are lower. There was a palace in a certain part of the city. We know where the gate was. We know where the temple was. So the two most important components of a city like this, their location is well known. And then we know that there was no major fortification surrounding the site, but houses built connected to each other and forming some sort of a belt of houses which gave protection to the people inside.
So the city was well fortified. Thanks to a tunnel system, even supplies could be maintained. 70 meters deep, it leads through the rocks under the city to the fresh water springs of Megiddo. Yet after 7 months, Thutmose succeeds in conquering the city. Whether Megiddo is taken by storm or falls as the result of treason remains an open question. The rebels must expect the worst. Back then, there's no Geneva Convention.
Zu Kriegszeiten waren die Ägypter
In times of war, the Egyptians were not squeamish in treating their prisoners.
Feinde wurden also
At best, they were deported to Egypt to do forced labor.
nach Ägypten und dort zur Zwangsarbeit verpflichtet.
Yet Thutmose has other plans for the rebels.
Thutmose III uses a new policy towards his enemies that will continue to be used afterwards in ancient Egypt. He makes the enemies promise not to attack or to rebel against Egypt again, and he forces them to pay taxes and tributes to Egypt.
So the pharaoh spares the lives of the subjugated. Relentlessness in war and moderation in peace. With this two-sided strategy, the Napoleon of Egypt restores order. A balanced policy of war and peace ensures the stability of the Egyptian empire. Yet 200 years after the victory of Megiddo, another pharaoh must again set out to the east to fight off the enemy. Ramses II, easily Egypt's most famous ruler.